Right. Okay. Well, it's just great to be a member of the Long Run. We have been talking to the Long Run for a very long time, and then last year, while at the beautiful Nicoy Island, it was really inspirational to meet fellow members and others around the Long Run. So we are very proud to be member with Cardamom Tented Camp. So Cardamom Tented Camp is quite a special project. We are actually in a national park in Cambodia, and that alone is a little bit of a different process how things go in Cambodia as opposed to the rest of the world. Typically, you cannot construct in a national park for obvious reasons, but in Cambodia, that's different, especially in this case. This particular national park has actually been divvied up in a number of economic concessions. Our part of the concession, 18,000 hectares, so that's 180 square kilometers, is lowland, mostly lowland rainforest. And the whole idea of the economic part of the concession was to make it a tourism project. But actually, the tourism project was only there to make it possible for the protection of this particular area. And that brings me to how our model comes across. On this slide, you see there are more than just YAANA Ventures involved. YAANA Ventures actually is we're the developer, so we built the tented camp, and we also operate the tented camp. So we do that. Minor, together with their foundation, the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation, are actually leasing the property. So they had that property and they were looking for a development partner. We are longtime business partners and friends actually with the Golden Triangle Asian Elephant Foundation, and that's how we found each other. But another third very important partner in this is Wildlife Alliance, and that's the conservation NGO. They are a US NGO, but they're based in Cambodia. And they provide the rangers and the ranger stations to do the patrols to keep the 180 square kilometers of lowland rainforest safe. They don't do that only for, say, our concession, but they're active everywhere in Cambodia, in particular in the Cardamom Mountains. So the interesting part of Cardamom Tented Camp, it is a product of a cooperation with three quite separate partners, wherein YAANA Ventures is the operator of the camp. Right, that brings me to our vision for Cardamom Tented Camp and our mission. Well, we are obviously dedicated to sustainable tourism. I think we bring sustainable tourism to the next level because basically what the whole tourism project is only to make sure that our concession, I keep saying we are very proud of that, our concession stays safe. We have a byline that says your stay keeps the forest standing. So our guests actually walk trails together with the rangers. So they get to know the rangers, they can visit the ranger station, they see what the rangers are doing, they are collecting a tremendous amount of traps, snares, and they have been very, very successful in that. As a matter of fact, wildlife is returning enormously in our region. Elephants are returning as well. So they found what was originally the whole plan to make our concession a corridor for wild elephants to trek through our corridor to the main part of the Cardamom Mountains. But aside from that, we also have an enormous amount of different wildlife. We also have dhole, so that's Asiatic wild dog, which is pretty rare in Southeast Asia, and more wildlife is returning basically by the month. So what we're doing now, another part that we're doing for our guests, is for them to make it possible to put out camera traps, and then find the camera traps, the results of the camera traps, share that on our social media, and in direct contact with the clients that put the traps there, again together with the rangers of Wildlife Alliance. So the guest stay contributes directly to the conservation work, and actually is part of the conservation work. The whole reason for Cardamom Tented Camp is conservation. The local community is also very important. Our staff, with the exception of our lodge manager, Alan, who is himself a long-term resident of Cambodia and has been and still is doing wildlife photography. He is the lodge manager, but other than that, all our staff are from the local community. We have a few people that come a little bit further abroad from afar from Phnom Penh, but most of our team comes from around the tented camp, which itself is important for the conservation, because they bring home the message like, don't hunt, don't do illegal logging, leave the forest, because it is good for our income and for the national heritage as well. So our impact across the 4 seas, we start with culture, although it is the most difficult one for us to have an impact on, simply because we are right in the middle of the jungle. Actually, our Cardamom Tented Camp, I forgot to mention, can only be reached by boat. So it's about 40 minutes boat ride from the local community to Cardamom Tented Camp, which is right in the middle of the jungle. So the part of culture is hard, but what we'll try to do is obviously, try to get local produce as much as possible. The beers that you see there is from a nano brewery in Phnom Penh, and they brew specifically batches for Cardamom Tented Camp as well. So we try to, make sure that local Cambodian products get, I think most of our products that we sell are from local community or from Cambodia itself. Conservation, I think I explained already, that is what we are all about. So that C is a big capital C in our 4 Cs. Community, I explained as well. Aside from our own team, we also include the rangers. The rangers are coming from Cambodia. We recently have been able to hire 2 more rangers specifically for those camera traps that I mentioned before. And then, of course, commerce is what makes it working. We are self-sufficient. We are not for profit, so to speak, but we are able to get enough money to run it, to actually grow. This month we are, or actually next month, we are opening 3 more tents. We had 9, and we are opening now to 12 tents with Riverview. So that means a little bit more income and a little bit more possibilities for the rangers to increase their routes and increase their team. So we are very much involved across all the 4 Cs. Well, there are enough challenges. If you are building right in the middle of the Asian jungle, one of the things you have to deal with is flash floods. Right after COVID, at a very terrible timing, actually, our tented camp got flooded. You could see the middle photo there, almost to the top of the tents. It came up in a few hours and it was gone in a few hours, but obviously the damage was extensive. So that is something that this type of thing, we hope it doesn't happen again in the next 10 years. These are kind of like 10-year events, but they do happen, and it is a very much a challenge. Rain in itself, while good because it's part of the lowland rainforest, is a challenge for tourism. In general, people don't like rain. It hampers activities. It doesn't for the rangers. They walk, rain or shine. But for tourism, of course, it's a little bit harder. So that is a bit of a challenge as well. So that means we need to do a little bit more in our restaurant, a little bit more education in our restaurant, and things like that. So yeah, natural circumstances are biggest challenge, and the solution is not easy, but the solution is keep you know uh, be be aware that these type of things can happen, and have procedures in place that if things happen, as the flooding goes now, we have a procedure in place that we can bring things that might get damaged more by floods get to higher ground as soon as possible. So we have learned from this type of thing, and that's how you prepare for the future. Um, right. Well, we are now part of the long run. We are very proud of that. We want to do more. We want to learn about the experience of other long run members. Again, like I mentioned, last year in Nikoi was really, really inspiring. And Alan, our lodge manager, just joined in the Asia Pacific meeting in the Philippines. So I'm sure he got inspired as well. So that's kind of like what we want to get out of the long run, um, and just do more with the resources that we have. Um, right. So that means that we are getting to the end of my presentation as well. One thing that we do is we go after awards all the time. We think that awards are great. They're great boost for our team, for our staff, but it's also a great way to show off the an outsized kind of like impact that you can have as a small team. And if you get for awards, you got to go for the real ones. It is a third party confirmation of what we are doing. So again, we thank all the guests that stay there, and we also thank for the long run for giving me the opportunity to talk about our little camp that could.